What up? Golden Era Podcast on YouTube. NBA Draft officially behind us. 2033-34 season officially underway. Quick little catch up on everything in the months, the days leading up to the draft. The big conversation around this class was Javon Boston, the USC guard. Boston wanted to play for the Clippers. He made it, and the number one overall pick expected is Javon Boston. Elite two-way wing guard for the Trojans last season. Would enter with that Javon Stokes type of hype surrounding him, probably a little bit better on day one than Stokes. But he doesn't want to play for anyone except the Clippers. That's a bold move. But this is a guy that lives in Los Angeles. He went to USC over UCLA from a basketball standpoint. UCLA, the more traditional basketball power in the city. He'd rather play for the Clippers than the Lakers. Challenge here is that the Clippers don't have their first overall pick. That one has been offloaded to Chicago as part of the roundabout way to get, that would have been the Kareem Robinson deal. That pick went through Boston, now to Chicago. Not in a great spot. Not great. Not great for the Clippers. Not great for Javon Boston either. You come into the league, you haven't even played yet, and you're already making demands on where you're going to go. As such, with the Clippers not being able to find a way to get that first overall pick, he does not enter the draft. So where his future goes as of this moment is still unclear. Does he go to the G League? It seems like the NBA wouldn't do that, wouldn't allow for that to happen. So it seems most likely he's going to head to Europe, take a season off. He could hypothetically return to USC. I'm not sure why he would do that. You could go for NIL numbers or money, but you probably get more of that overseas potentially. So where that goes, we don't know. But the best pick in the draft is gone, which opens up the way for Cavante Kennard. And that's going to be where we'll start. That's, in my opinion, the best pick of this draft. And a quick recap of our top 10. It's Cavante Kennard going to the Pelicans, E.J. Clarkson to the Sixers, Baron Hunter, Yanni Giddens to the Pistons, Dameon Pack, Malik Roll to the Rockets. The Hawks get Miska Zurich, Marcus Workman at number 8 to the Wolves, David Sebic to the Nuggets, and then at 10, Mason Holt. We'll get the full draft up there for you as well. Other picks that I will talk about. Andre Schlorbeck at 12. Isaiah Quinn to 15. The Bulls did a lot in this draft. They moved a lot around, but Lorbeck there. Isaiah Quinn to the Bulls. To Miami. So a ton of picks here. But let's start with the top. Cavante Kennard is my best pick. Why? Because they are set up now for the future. Okay, they've got Javon Stokes at one of the guard spots. They've got Dakota Motley at either guard or forward spot. They're probably going to start the season as a small forward. And then you got Cavante Kennard at the 5. Kennard, first off, it's the best pick because he was the best player. And Chicago did a lot to move up to get him, right? They moved the number 3 and number 12 first-round picks, along with a future first from Denver to New Orleans to go from 5 to number 1. Chicago did. But Kennard himself is a physical specimen. He is a guy that walks in and has an upside on par with Abiz Ojale, Robert Mack, and Xavier Carter, who are unquestioned the top 3 centers in the league. Is he going to be All-NBA Season 1? No, I don't think he is. Where he's not elite on that standpoint, he's not a great scorer with his back to the basket, but athletically, he is so talented that as a pick-and-roll guy with Motley and Stokes, it's a vertical threat. He's also an elite defender out the gates. In one season with Ohio State, he averaged 3.9 blocks per game and 13 boards. He's going to change the way that Chicago plays on the defensive side of the ball. He's going to make them a better team, and as you project into the future, if they can nail fringe moves, Chicago has the makings of the next best roster in the NBA. My worst pick is at number 6. It's Malik Roll to Chicago. Roll was a guy that most everyone had in the 20s, let alone in the lottery. So Chicago, it feels like a massive reach here to go and get a guy at number 6 that you could have traded assets for and gotten. Heck, they had a pick at 19. They could have taken him there. They also had a pick at 25. They probably could have taken him there. Instead, they take him at 6. What he does great, he's a great 3-and-D wing. He's a good three-point shooter. He shot just under 40%, 38.9, so good three-point shooter and a phenomenal wing defender at 6'6". He can guard 1 through 3 and some smaller fours. That's not a debate. But why are you taking him at 6 when, if you're Houston, you have one piece on that roster in Darnell Gist that you know at your center position that you know you have skill set at? The rest of that roster is wide open. Now, sure, they take Cole Herringody at number 19 to be your point guard of the future. Cole wasn't my first point guard available, and as they sit there at 6, only one guard, Damian Pack, was off the board. And I would say Pack fairly was the best point guard in this draft, but if what you wanted was a guard, I thought Mason Holt would have been a better point guard option. Yes, he has injury history from Oregon, but a phenomenal scorer. He was probably the second best player in college basketball when he was healthy. Andrej Lorbeck is a better option. If you wanted a 1 or a 2, you could have had him. Even all the way down to Brian Vaughn at 18 or at 17, I like him as a 2 guard better than I like Malik Rule. Meanwhile, if you wanted shooting, David Sebic was there. He goes at 9, but Sebic is a great 3-point shooter. Isaiah Quinn would have been a better option. The point here is that you make a reach for a guy that better pay off. I don't know that it will, and even if he becomes a starting caliber player, which is great, this just seems like a massive waste of resources where maybe you could have traded that pick for maybe move back to 10 with Dallas and add in a future, lottery protected first, and you can still get Malik Roll there. So it's just a waste of an asset that early on. What Roll ends up becoming, I don't know, equals the value that you could have potentially gotten here at number 6. My biggest head scratcher is Andrej Lorbeck falling to number 12. Lorbeck, yes, polarizing, but what has Lorbeck been comped to? He's been considered Luka Light, right? He's 6'7", 6'8", elite playmaker. He's a good scorer, good shooter, not a knock your socks off type of scorer, but he's a guy that plenty of people had going in the top 5. He last year for Real Madrid, he averaged 5 or 6 assists per game, 4 boards, shot 31% from deep. There's room for improvement, but the fortunate thing here for New Orleans is that they've got a pretty long runway. Yes, they made the play-in last season, but I don't think this is a team with their only real star being Ty Outlaw that you start looking at and saying, okay, it's time to go all in for a top 6 pick. It's not. But what Lorbeck can provide this team in the long run is a playmaking option next to Ty Outlaw, so the offense doesn't solely run through him, and now you've got 2 guys that can play make for themselves and for others. I love this. Why am I concerned? Why am I questioning it? Why did he fall this far? I mean, the point goes back to Malik Roll at 6. I'd take Andrej Lorbeck over him if I'm looking for a guard. David Sebic, you can make the case Lorbeck, because of his size at 6'8", can play 1 through 3. If I'm the Nuggets, I probably would keep with Sebic in that situation, only because you've got DeAndre Dawkins, but at the same time, Lorbeck's a better playmaker. And so if you're looking at your roster, if you're Denver at number 8, or excuse me, at number 9, and you're saying, where could I have taken a better piece here? Well, Lorbeck's a higher ceiling, and the ceiling is higher than anything that DeAndre Dawkins, who's a good starting point guard for Denver, it's better than anything you can provide. Joshua Chapman, the same thing. At 8, Minnesota taking Marcus Workman. Workman's not a better player than Andrej Lorbeck. And you need a wing, you need a guard, you need a playmaker if you're Minnesota around to be Zoshale. Lorbeck's that guy. So to me, this is a head scratcher because there's a number of teams ahead of him all the way up into the top 5 that I thought Lorbeck was going to. I thought he might even go number 2 to the Sixers, and that's E.J. Clarkson, who ends up there. It's a surprise that he falls that far. We'll find out if teams knew something more than we did, but right now, in the immediate aftermath, just minutes afterwards, it seems as if Lorbeck falling is a real shock here. All right, in 3 years, I'll love this pick. Tyrone Marsh at number 29 to Portland. Marsh, he was a top 5 point guard out of Kentucky, but he tears his Achilles before the season even begins. He's an elite athlete. And you have to assume at just 20 years old, 19, 20, he's going to return to near peak form athletically from this injury. Normally, if you're 40 years old, 35 years old, maybe we have some concerns, but at 20 years old, you have to feel relatively confident he'll get back to that peak. Keep in mind, Tariq Wheeler suffered a torn ACL when he was at Kentucky. He was supposed to be a top 5 pick. He ends up going number 32 overall to New Orleans. Tariq Wheeler is a starting caliber center right now. So young injuries, they can be concerning, but I don't think it should be this ultimate we're not taking him. And in this case, I like this move for Tyrone Marsh. At 29, Marsh can be the type of star that you need next to Savion White. Portland continues to try to get stars. I'd expect them to be pretty active this summer. But you're getting a guy at 29 that had top 5 potential out the gate, and if it doesn't pan out, your alternatives weren't much better at this point in the draft. So it's a huge gamble. It's not a huge gamble. It's a huge upside pick for a team that really needs to roll the dice and get some upside pieces. And then in 3 years, I'll hate this pick. Marcus Workman at number 8 to Minnesota. Workman's a big man out of Arkansas. He's a good defender. He's 6'9", so he's a little undersized, but he can switch across the paint. He can defend wings. He can defend some bigger guards. He can defend bigger big men. He's very Draymond, R.J. Wallace type defender. But Minnesota doesn't need another big man. They've got Abiy Ojale as your starting 5. They've got Darian Hairston as your starting 4. Hairston's a really, really, I think, underrated power forward. Does a lot of the same things that Workman does. So if I'm Minnesota and I'm sitting there, yeah, you've got Shamar Poole at the point guard position. Yeah, you've got Malcolm Knight, who I think is a pencil him or a pen him in to starting 2 guard for this team for the next 3 to 4 years. I don't know that Shamar Poole is. He was the 5th round pick. Yeah, you got Gabriel Ruffin. He was 4th overall pick. Poole was the 5th overall pick. They went a couple years ago when they went 4-5. But neither of those guys have leaped off the stage as, all right, this is a bona fide superstar that we can pair next to Abiy Ojale. And trust me that Marcus Workman is not that guy. But even if you didn't have Darian Hairston, you do. Where's Workman going to get his minutes? Even if Workman becomes an R.J. Wallace type of player, a defensive player of the year caliber, switch everything defender, this team is now capped offensively. Abiy Ojale is not a paint-bound only center. He can stretch the floor a little bit. But he is not Robert Mack, who is maybe the best shooting big man the NBA has had since Karl Anthony Towns and Nikola Jokic. Where's Workman going to get his minutes? Where are you going to get development out of this kid at this point? I just don't see it. All right. Free agency, that's coming up next. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back probably after the beginning of free agency. So we'll do some live reactions to that and get after it.